The wait is over. The spray booth has arrived. All right, so it turns out the spray booth actually arrived at my local UPS facility about 8 or 9 days ago, and I was wondering why it was taking so long to get delivered. And it turned out that they were trying to call me to schedule a freight delivery because this is not a normal UPS delivery. But the number they had on file was incorrect, and so since they couldn't reach me, it was just sitting at the depot collecting dust. And so I got it straightened out today, and I ended up just driving down to the UPS freight depot to pick it up myself because it's only about 20 minutes away from where I live. And the folks at the UPS freight depot were kind enough to use a forklift to put it into my truck because it is rather heavy. It weighs almost 200 pounds. It did rain a little bit on the way home for a few minutes, and the cardboard got a little wet, but I think everything will be just fine. And actually, by the time I got home, most of the water had already dried up. So I'm home now. I'm gonna go ahead and unload this into the garage workshop, and then I'll get busy setting it up. Here's some extra filters. Here's the flange for the exhaust duct. That's a big exhaust duct. Oh, there's the motor for the fan. Fan belt. Bunch of parts. Parts list and instructions. Sweet. And that's the pulley for the fan belt. Boy, this is a nice looking motor. So this is the heart of the spray booth right here. This is the electric motor that's going to power the exhaust fan on the booth. It's a big fan, so it needs a big motor. This is a 1/4 horsepower motor made by Baldor Reliance. Now on the specs tag here, the spec that I'm most interested in right now is the amps rating. So if I run this at 115 volts, which is what I'm going to do, this will pull 5 amps. That's a little bit higher than I initially thought. I thought it would pull around 3 amps, but even at 5 amps, we should be okay because I'll be running this on a 20 amp circuit. On a 20 amp circuit, or any circuit for that matter, you don't want to go over 80% of capacity. So on a 20 amp circuit, you don't want to go over 16 amps. So we've got 5 amps here. The only other notable thing running on that same circuit is my washing machine, and at full load, that pulls 10 amps. And then I've also got an LED shop light, but that pulls only about 200 milliamps. So even if I'm running this at the same time I'm doing my laundry, we should be fine. And honestly, that's probably not going to happen that often, but if it does, we'll be okay. Oh, and it's nice to see that just like the rest of the spray booth, the motor is also made in the USA. Right on. I'm not sure what's in here. If I had to guess, it's probably some of the duct work for the exhaust fan. Yeah, that's what it says right here. Vent unit. So let's see what a vent unit looks like. Good God, this thing's huge. Oh my God. Look at that thing. Massive. Says Pash on it. It's pretty cool. So this is also made in the USA. I like how everything about this booth is made in the USA. It's very cool. So before I get started on assembly, I wanted to show you a couple more things. Here's that vent kit out of the box. This thing's huge. I mean, look at that fan blade. It's got a nice Pash label on the front. And then this is that pulley piece that was in the box earlier, and that'll connect to the electric motor like so. And then the belt will connect to the pulley, and the other end of the belt will connect back here and turn the fan. And then this flange piece goes up on top, and that'll be used to connect the ductwork that will go to the outside of the house to this structure. And then the last thing I want to show you is right here. These are the instructions that came with the spray booth. And when you spend $1,400 on a spray booth, you get personalized instructions. How cool is that? Here's something else that came with the booth, a Dwyer Mark II manometer. And no, a manometer is not a meter for measuring the attractiveness of a man. A manometer measures airflow resistance, and these are used to let you know when it's time to change the air filters on your paint booth. I think these might be required by law when your paint booth gets to a certain size. But basically, when your air filters are brand new, the resistance of the air going through them is very little. The air flows very freely through the filters. But as the filters get clogged up with paint over time, that resistance increases, and this measures that, and eventually it lets you know that it's time to change your filters. And look at that, once again, made in the USA. I have not seen one item in this very large kit so far that does not say made in the USA on it. That's awesome. So here's the box with the actual hood parts. Here's the label. So these are all the panels that make up the booth. Yeah, this is the section that has the air filters. So that'll go inside the booth. Once I get the booth assembled, this will go on the inside, and that's the filter. All right, so now I'll shut my mouth and get busy assembling this thing. I've never done anything like this before, so it should be a good challenge. So let's cue up the music and give it a try. I've got the motor mounted Got the belt on there, and the wires are configured for the low voltage setting because I'm going to be running this on 120 volts and not 240. So I just want to test this real quick to make sure it works. So I've got a little plug here, and just wire it up real quick. Alright, so I'm going to plug it in for just a second to see if it spins up. If it does, you should see the blade start spinning. So let's give it a shot. Oh yeah. Well, that makes some wind. Awesome. Alright, so here's the cord that'll run inside here and connect up to these wires, and then the other side will connect to the switch box on the bench. So I'm going to put this little cable clamp here. Now I actually got one of these metal snake cable things to connect to this junction box and then go to the switch box, but this space here was too tight for that snake cable, so that's why I decided to go with this softer cable instead. Alright, so there's the ground lug back there. So this green wire will go to that. So the last thing I want to do before I install this on top of the booth is to add the belt guard, which goes right here. Okay, we're done here, so let's go install this on top of the booth. Alright, so I put it up on the booth and gave it a test run for a second, and I realized that the air was flowing in the wrong direction. It was sucking in from the top. So I looked at the motor, and in really fine print down here it says interchange the 5 and 8 leads to reverse direction. So that's what I'll do, and that should fix that problem. Okay, so it says to interchange 5 and 8. All these wires are numbered, so here's number 5 and here's number 8. Alright, so let me give this a test one more time. It was spinning counterclockwise last time, so now it should spin clockwise. And yeah, it is. Okay, so we're all good. Back to the booth. Alright, let's get this nice and tight. And there we go. So the vent unit is now attached to the top of the hood. And the instructions, they had the motor hanging off the back, but I actually turned it counterclockwise a little bit to hang it off the side. And that's so that I can more easily do any needed maintenance to the motor or the belt. Now, of course, we still have to hook up the exhaust ductwork up here, and that'll go to the wall and then to the outside of the house. I've ordered the exterior wall vent for the outside. That'll be here in a few days, and then I've also ordered a few pieces of 12-inch ductwork to go from here to the vent. So that'll all be here in a few days, and we'll get to that then. But right now, the booth itself is pretty much complete. So what we need to do now is hook up the switch and give it a test run. Alright, I've got the switch wired up to the motor, and the switch is also wired up to the outlet. So let's go ahead and plug everything in and give it a whirl. Alright. Boy, I can feel the suction. This thing is great. Look at that. That's some really powerful suction. It's very loud, but it's great. It actually feels really nice back here when it's on because the suction is so powerful it creates a nice breeze back here in the cubby, and it's very pleasant. So the next thing we're going to do is work on the exhaust vent work, and as I said, that stuff won't be here for a few more days. The good news is that since you're watching this on a video, you only have to wait a few seconds for it to arrive. And then after the ductwork is installed, and the booth is positioned in its final position, I'll install the manometer over here to monitor the airflow resistance, and then that'll be it, and we'll be ready to do some airbrushing. So it took a couple weeks, but the exterior vent has finally arrived. I went with a 12-inch vent. So now it's time to install it. This is going to be the scary part because I now have to cut a 12-inch hole in the back of my house. All right, so I've got my center right here for the 12-inch diameter hole in the drywall, and then I've got a little jig here made with a ruler. I've got the screw hole in the center at 0 inches, and then at 6 inches I've got a hole for my pencil. That'll give me a 6-inch radius and therefore a 12-inch diameter hole, at least in theory. So let's see if this works. Well, my ruler's a little bit too long, that's for sure. All right. Well, we got part of it done. Now I gotta somehow get this done up here because I goofed and my ruler is too long. So you know what? This was a cheap ruler. I'm just gonna cut off part of it and finish the circle. I've already spent a ton of money on this booth installation, so I don't think a couple bucks for a ruler is gonna make much of a difference at this point. All right. All right. Look at that. That worked perfectly once the ruler was the right length. All right, so here's the hole I'm gonna cut out in the drywall. But before I do that, I'm gonna take my other drill, and I've got a really long 1/8 inch bit on here, and I'm going to put it through here all the way to the exterior wall and drill through, and that way on the outside of the house I'll have a center to drill the hole on the other side. So I've got to make sure I'm drilling a level hole, or as level as possible, so I've got a little level here. Alright, so now there should be a small hole on the outside of my house. So we're going to go ahead and cut this hole for the interior drywall hole. I'm just going to use a keyhole saw, and then I've got a big jig with a router for the exterior hole. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm trying to get it as perfect as I can. All right, well, you can see there's no insulation in this wall of my garage. That's why it's so hot in here all the time. So there's the exterior wall, there's some plywood, and then there's the hardy plank siding on the other side of this plywood. So we got this part done. This part's the part I'm really nervous about because it involves cutting a hole in my siding, which was just put up a few years ago. So, all right, I'm up on the ladder. It's way down there. My neighbor is holding the ladder for me, so hopefully this will work. I've got this jig and the router here. Sorry if the camera's moving around a lot, but can't be helped. See what we got. I need that drill again. See if you can tie it onto that rope. All All right, well, we got through the siding really good and got through most of the plywood too. So I might be able to just use the keyhole saw or the jigsaw and do the plywood. I think I might use my jigsaw. All right. All right. Let's see if this thing fits. Fits like a glove. Wow. All right. Get nice and level. There we go. Better? Yeah, much better. Just trying these stainless steel screws and they just were not going to do it. So the nice thing about these luxury metals vents that I got, so they have a sprung door, there's a screen to prevent critters from getting in, and it's also padded. So this is a really nice vent that I got at Luxury Metals. Forecast says there's no rain. I was telling my neighbor if I was a professional, I'd have matching gray caulk, but that's not going to happen. All right, the vent is installed. I can't believe it. It's finally done, and it went really smoothly. I'm really happy with the way it went. It looks great. There's a little bit of discoloration around there. That's just dust, and that'll wash off over time with rain and so forth. But yeah, I'm really happy with the way it went, and now we are on the downhill slope. Here's the other side of the now installed vent. I went ahead and put some of that great stuff, expanding foam, around the edges to fill in the gaps, and everything's looking great. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach the booth vent to the external vent, and we'll be set. It's been a couple days, and as you can see, the exhaust vent is now finished. I also installed the manometer over here, since the booth is now in its final position. And with that, the spray booth is now good to go. The only thing I might still do is add another shelf down here just to optimize the storage. But other than that, this thing is finished, functional, and ready for action. Now, a bit of good news that I found out as I was building this whole thing was that as far as the amperage goes for the spray booth and my washing machine on the other side, I'm going to be just fine. I got one of these devices that measures the electrical usage of whatever is plugged into it. So if I turn on the Airbrush booth, you can see that the fan motor uses about 5 amps, a little over 5 amps. The washing machine on the other side, I thought it used 10 amps, but I plugged this thing into the washing machine while it was running, and because it's a high efficiency washing machine, it only uses 5 amps at most when it's running. So that's really good news. I'm not going to come anywhere near overloading this circuit, which is always a good thing. Anyway, as you can see, I've got the booth set up for my first airbrush weathering project with this MTH High Cube boxcar. I'm going to do a boxcar before I do an engine or anything like that, because it's been a year or two since I did some airbrush weathering, and so I want to get practiced and knock the rust off before I do an engine. Now, this video is running a little long, so I'm not going to show you the entire process. I'll just show you a minute or two of me airbrushing this car, but I will be doing a full airbrush weathering tutorial in the near future. So if you have any questions, that you want to know about how to airbrush trains, let me know in the comments below, and I will try to answer those questions when I do the full tutorial in the very near future. So for now, that's it. I'm going to end this video with a couple minutes of me airbrushing this car. I want to thank everybody for sticking with me to watch this two-part series. I know for some of you it's not the most exciting thing in the world. You'd like me to just run trains 100% of the time, but you know, this is the kind of stuff that gets me excited about the hobby and keeps me excited. It's not all about running trains, it's about everything involved in the hobby, and this is a big part of it. This has been a dream of mine for years to have a professional style paint booth, and now I've got it and I am super excited about it. So if you'd like to support Eric's Trains, I would greatly appreciate it. That can be done through Patreon at www.patreon.com/ericstrains. I'd like to put a big thank you out there to all of my current Patreon supporters. Your support means the world, not only to me, but to the future of this channel. And then lastly, if you'd like to buy an Eric's Trains t-shirt or anything else I might be selling, check out the Eric's Trains online store at www.ericstrains.com/store. Anyway, I'm going to start airbrushing this model. I hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned for the full airbrush weathering tutorial in the near future. That's it for now. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time.